to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and I'm ready to talk some Week 5 football. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, Joe Dalio, then our special guest, Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio from WGR 550, Sports Radio 550 of Buffalo, New York, who joined us last year. So first, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I am doing great, Jamie. How you doing?
Good. About you?
It's doing great. We got ourselves a football season here. We're after this week, after week 6, we're going to be a third of the way through the regular season already. Can't believe it's going that fast, but there's so much to talk about now, a lot going on. So I look very much forward to talking about it.
Yes. And, but guess what tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about it, but we're not just doing it, just the two of us alone. Let's bring on our special guest, Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Here's Sal.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Sal, how's it going?
Good.
Excellent.
Good to be on.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You got it. I know we tried to do a little bit different time, and you guys were gracious enough to understand I couldn't make it, so I appreciate you working back in.
Yeah, no problem. That was on my end, though. That was my bad. I take responsibility.
No, it's all good. No, we set it up, and then I help out sometimes with the American Cancer Society in October for Real Men Wear Pink, and I had an event to do, so I was the one that canceled on you. So I apologize. I'm glad we were able to do it.
No problem. You're doing a good thing for a good cause. So, anyway, now we're going to do something a little different in our show this week. We're actually going to start out with the Sunday 1:00 game matchup with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Houston Texans. Now, after both offenses basically went 3 and out on the opening drive, the Bills drove down the field and settled for a 38-yard field goal from Tyler Bass to take the lead 3-0. The Texans then answered right back with a long pass from C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins, resulting in a touchdown to give the Titans their first lead 7-3. The Buffalo Bills stalled on their next drive while the Texans started moving the ball down the field with Cam Akers away, scoring a rushing touchdown to bring the score to 14-3 Texans. Both teams were held scoreless in the second quarter until 30 seconds left when kicker Kai Fairbon boasted a 50-yard field goal to close the first half 17-3 Houston. This is the first time with Josh Allen starting at quarterback that the Bills have had trailed by double digits after halftime. Starting the third quarter, though, the Texans stalled on their first drive and kicked a field goal, which brought the score to 20-3. On the Bills' next drive, they finally got the running game going as Ty Johnson had a 19-yard run and Allen scrambled for 7 yards while drawing an unnecessary roughness flag. Dalton Kincaid joined the party, bringing the team down to the Texans' 5-yard line, and James Cook found the end zone, finally scoring the first touchdown of the game or the day for the Bills to cut the score to 20-10. The Bills' defense remained stout, causing the Texans to punt in the middle of the third quarter. A couple plays later on 4th and 5, the Bills elected to go for it, and I actually did agree with that decision. I felt like the analytics said to go for it on that one, and it paid off as Keon Coleman caught it on a catch and ran 49 yards down the sideline and tight-roped it without going out of bounds to cut the lead to 20-17. The Bills' defense then came through again in the fourth quarter as Terrell Bernard, welcome back, buddy, in your first game back after injury, intercepted Stroud, but the offense had to punt once again. After the punt, Dwayne Smoot forced a fumble that Dorian Williams recovered, giving the Bills the ball on the Texans' 15-yard line. Allen then got sacked and had to leave the game for a short time, but returned to throw 2 incompletions that led Bass to a game-tying field goal that knotted the game at 20. With less than a minute left in the game, the Texans backed the Bills deep in their own territory. The Bills were not able to produce anything on offense and had to punt the ball. The Texans were able to run the clock down with 2 seconds left on the clock and kicked a 59-yard game-winning field goal to make the final score 23-20 Texans. So Sale, obviously being on WGR and getting more access and press and credentials to the games, I have to ask you, what did you think of McDermott's poor play calling of clock management at the end of the game? Now, obviously, this is probably the second time he's done this, but I did like that he at least took the blame for it. And knowing McDermott, he does hold the team accountable whether they win or lose, and I'm glad he held himself accountable. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's as egregious as everyone else says, as you call it, poor play calling. I think it was something that is defensible, but he still should have ran the ball. I think people forget that the Texans had 3 timeouts. Whether they throw the ball or run the ball, the Texans are stopping the clock after every play. It does not matter. If it's an incomplete pass, the clock stops. If it's a run, they call timeout and the clock stops. So it's kind of a really tough situation. The Bills were not trying to score. I've read a lot of people saying, we had somebody call WGR yesterday and say, oh man, asking Josh Allen to go down the field in that situation is a tough ask. They weren't trying to score. They're trying to get 1 first down. Then they would have nailed. They would have got 1 first down. Then they would kneel it out because the Texans wouldn't be able to stop the clock. I think it's a tough situation. I think Sean actually, I agree with you. He took the blame. He should. He's the head coach. But I think that Joe Brady has to take, responsibility here too, which is, you don't have to get a lot of yards on first down to get a first down. You don't have to throw deep, obviously, on second down. They just needed a first down. So I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people think. I do disagree that I think they should have ran. And the reason is because at least then you force Houston to use their timeouts. Mm-hmm. And then when they do get the ball back, they don't have an opportunity to stop the clock on offense one time, which is all they needed. But at the end of the day, he probably still makes a kick from 65 yards. So I think that there's been a very, very big overreaction about the end of the game from the fan base, because I think a lot of people don't understand the exact situation.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And Joe, what do you think about you could call it a lack of playmakers, but like I said, these same guys worked the first 3 weeks. You saw the potential being there, but then you also got to remember, then you saw some of the youth and inexperience there. Obviously not having Diggs and trying to work with these playmakers. So what do you think? Is it time to start calling Devontae Adams yet? Because like I said, these playmakers, I feel like they showed that they can do it, but we got to remember they're still young there and it's a work in progress there.
Yeah, it's a tough question, because at this point, who do you really go out and get? I think the big thing here, something I noticed, is there wasn't a single receiver on the Bills that caught more than 2 passes. So to answer that question, I think the Bills have to determine who the playmaker is. And whether anybody that they have is capable of that, I guess we still need to see. But I think that's the big thing. It's like, who's the playmaker? Shakir being out certainly didn't help, but there's no clear-cut guy here. Now, again, I like the receiving by committee in a way. 6 different receivers caught 1 or 2 passes. Of course, highlighted by Keon Coleman's, toe-tapping sideline run there for the 49-yard touchdown. But that, I think, is the first order of business. Who is the playmaker in the first place, and who's going to be the guy to step up and take that role? I think that's the first question. I honestly don't see a guy like Devontae Adams or any big names coming in at this point. So maybe I'm wrong, and I guess in a way I hope I'm wrong about that, and maybe they can bring somebody in. But I think it's going to be more of a factor of determining, okay, who do we have here that could step up and do that?
Right now, like I said, it's Shakir, but I think Coleman each game, though, is proving more and more that he can be. He's made a lot of really cool athletic plays for a rookie that even Diggs couldn't make, because Coleman kind of reminds me, he could be like a Mike Evans type of receiver, where he's like a big, physical, fast receiver, but he can also jump and go catch the tough ones too. Whereas
Yeah.
like Diggs couldn't really jump and leap and do that though. So
Yeah, and another question too. I mean, it's tough because the defenses are focusing in on some of these guys. Like people were asking, some people I was talking to a little after the game, it's like, why aren't they throwing to Dalton Kincaid? Why can't they get him involved? But the defenses are focusing on him, so I think that's easier said than done. I think he's being covered, and it's kind of hard to do that. So again, let's figure out who's going to step up here based on who they have right now.
mhm. And Sal, we obviously, I feel like we kind of dealt with this as Bills watchers and observers, and obviously podcasters and all that, and you being on GR, always things. So we know Josh Allen's a great runner and everything, and that the scheme before we brought in James Cook to run the ball with him allowed Allen. There were more design plays for Allen to be able to be the runner. But then when James Cook came in, at least we were able to rely on him to take the pressure off of Allen from running. Do you think that like he should still be running the ball even with all their injuries? Because I get it, like that was the problem with what got Kenny Dorsey fired last year, was not having him run as much. But I get it. They also don't want him to get hurt, and they want to make sure he's starting for 17 games, because look at what's going around the league. And even last year, I think there was like 64 backups had to come in and start, and Josh Allen ended up only being the only quarterback to start every game. So what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think there were several reasons why Ken Dorsey was fired. I mean, I don't know if that was specifically one of them, but he definitely wasn't running as much last year. And then we did see it a little bit longer, a little bit more down the stretch. But I think the Bills needed a little bit more of that. I think for a few years now, the Bills have kind of wanted him not to run as much because they have a franchise quarterback here. They want to keep his, longevity. And as you said, you could take shots and get injured. And he is dealing with a hurt hand right now. Let's remember that. So even the quarterback sneaks, we haven't seen those really the last couple of weeks as much. He did run a little bit, a couple games prior, and that's worked out. Sure, I'd like to see that a little bit more, but the Bills have built themselves a running game where they don't feel they need to have that. What I wish I'd see more was on Sunday. I thought Josh Allen had a couple opportunities to run and take off for a first down. He didn't do it. He had opening in front of him. He's dropped back. There's nobody open. And then he tried to make a couple of off-platform throws, and usually he's great at that, and they were incomplete, where I think he could have actually got the first down if he would have ran. So yeah, I think the team is trying to not have him carry the load running the ball, but I also think because of the hand injury right now, they're also dealing with that, and all it takes is one shot on that hand, and he re-injures it, and I don't think they want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. I like that. I forgot about obviously the hand injury where he's got the glove on, and it's his non-throwing hand, luckily, but hopefully it doesn't go to his throwing hand. And staying on you, Sale, this is obviously about the Jets. I mean, we play them coming up Monday night. With Coach Robert Saleh being fired today, do you think Aaron Rodgers was the one really behind it? Because I think Saleh, I think he's the scapegoat for like a lot of their things, because if you look, when he first came in, he had to basically wipe out that entire team, which allowed him to play first and second year players, but it allowed them to get cap money to allow them to get to where they want to go. And I still think even with his firing, he's left the Jets better than when they found it. And his defenses have always were great under him. And like I say, his specialty wasn't really on offense. So what do you think? Do you think it's him, or do you think they needed to point a finger at somebody because of Rodgers?
Well, I don't know exactly what went down there. I don't cover them, but I've been reading a lot of stuff today. I would say from an outsider looking in, I think that it's naive to think that Aaron Rodgers, the situation with him there didn't have something to do with it. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers necessarily called for his firing or told Woody Johnson to fire him. I think that you're going to see a lot of that stuff. There's been reporting today that that Saleh was going to demote Nathaniel Hackett's play calling duties, and maybe Rodgers then stepped in there. But I think that's happening anyway, even with the new head coach. So I don't think that I don't think it's Aaron Rodgers fired Robert Saleh, but I think it's naive to think that the relationship between the two, how it's been going, the tension that seems to be there, the friction, the respect, whatever. I mean, it's easier to get rid of the head coach after his record than it is to get rid of Aaron Rodgers after the investment you've made in him if you're the owner and what you're trying to do here. So I think given the two, if you have to make a choice, you're probably choosing the head coach, whether that's fair or not. That's just the way the business works at this point. So I think that you have to at least consider that whole dynamic altogether, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Aaron Rodgers, made the call to have him fired.
Because like I said, I look beyond the record of 20-36. I think if you look at where they are now, I think he's still leaving them in a better place than when he took over as the coach, at least. So,
you have to remember, I mean, roster wise, that's on Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas is the general manager. So, he's the one picking the players. And, I do think he's had an excellent defense. There's no doubt. And I do think that he was kind of hamstrung on some of the offensive coaches that he could bring in. So I think you're right about that, some of this, shouldn't be at his feet because he's kind of only playing with the hand that's been dealt him. And he's had an excellent defense over the last few years. And the organization has made some pretty terrible decisions at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joe, what's your take on that? Because like I said, I've always liked Robert Saleh, being a guy from the Kyle Shanahan tree. And as we know, Kyle Shanahan's got a great tree of assistant guys who went on to become head coaches. It was obviously him, D'Amico, Ryans, and Mike McDaniel. So,
yeah, I agree with most of what Sal said here. And the fact that I don't think Aaron Rodgers called for his firing. If anything, I've read a lot that they had a little bit of a strained relationship, and that might have factored into it. I was a little surprised. It didn't go according to the script that I had for it. But I think the fact that the AFC East is still a very winnable division for the Jets, I think played into it as far as the making the move now. I honestly thought after losing that game, I said to some people here too, that if the Jets lost to the Bills on Monday night, that they would fire Robert Saleh then. And I think that they're still thinking that, they're in win now mode with Rodgers there, and you don't know how long he's going to be able to play with them. And, again, the fact that the Bills are 3-2, the Dolphins are not in a good situation there with Tua being out for we don't know how long. So I think the Jets are thinking, hey, this is still a very winnable division. We played 5 games here. And, with the game coming up against the Bills now, that if the Jets win that game, they're, I believe, in first place. So I think the fact that they still think they can take this division and they still think they can win now and that they didn't want to wait any longer here factored into the decision a lot as well.
Mm-hmm. We at Bubble Sports Conversation wish Coach Saleh good luck, and I really hope you get another job, Coach Saleh, because I don't think this was your fault, and I think you'll get a D coordinating job somewhere. I really like you as a coach, and you built a nice body of work through your whole career. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you too, Jamie. I don't think he was as horrible as a coach as people say. Again, dealing with the hand that he's dealt with. And yes, he could have done some things better, and I think he's going to learn some lessons here. But again, I don't think it's all his fault either.
No, so. And Joe, now with the Bills traveling to the Meadowlands next Monday night to take on the 2-3 Jets, what do they need to do, you think, to regroup to face them?
Well, it's funny because that's the exact question I had for Sal. I had some questions written down, and that's what I was going to ask Sal. So I will say that's a tough question here because, now the Jets, you're going to have a different Jets team than potentially you were going to have in that game. I didn't know which Jets team was going to come out if Saleh was the coach. Were they going to fight for the guy's job, knowing that it could be in jeopardy if they lost? Were they going to lay down and not that a football team loses on purpose, but, what kind of Jets team was going to come out? And now the Bills are going to see an entirely different team coming out here because of the coaching change. Because a lot of times, I know this is true in every sport when there's a coach firing. The team, every player looks themselves in the mirror and thinks, you know what? It's not just the coach. I was partially responsible for that too. So I think the Jets are going to certainly step up. I think just again finding somebody to step up, maybe focusing a little bit more on the run and getting James Cook more involved. Although he was, pretty involved in this past game and played well. So, I guess since I planned ahead and had the question, if you don't mind, I'm going to defer to Sal here and ask that same question. What adjustments do the Bills make in this game? How do they handle now this changing situation and basically a different type of mental setup for the team that they're going up against here on Monday night?
So I don't think the Bills have to do anything different as far as the Jets are concerned. Like there's no all of a sudden, oh my God, they have a new coach. We got to do all these things different because they're going to play different. The defensive coordinator is taking over. You have to run the same defense. They're not going to have some super secret defense they're unveiling, right? So you just kind of prepare for that defense. They'll still have Aaron Rodgers. They'll still have the same offensive line, which has been not that great. But I think the only thing you have to do is internally, which is match the energy, because they will have energy. They will, as you said, there is a bump that usually happens. And I like the way you put that, Joe, which is guys looking themselves in the mirror. The other thing is they're saying, I could be next. If the head coach is gone, I could be the next one out the door if I'm not performing, right? So I think everybody gets a little bit more on high alert. Remember when Gift Smith was the head coach of the Chargers last year against the Bills, the first game he took over. They fired Brandon Staley the week before they played the Bills on that Saturday night before Christmas. And then the Bills went there, and the Bills didn't play a very good game that day. They came back late. They wound up winning the game. You always have to be on alert for things like that when coaches get fired. But I don't think it changes your preparation whatsoever. The Bills need to focus on themselves. The adjustments they need to make are in their own building. The adjustments they need to make are in their own play. There's nothing that I can almost guarantee you. Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich and Joe Brady, they're not walking into team meetings going, guys, whatever we were going to do against Robert Saleh's team, we have to change now. They're not going to do that, right? I mean, what they're going to do is, hey, this is what we did last game and did not do. We better be better this game, and if we're going to win. And I think that's the approach they're going to take.
Awesome.
Which brings me to my next question and Joe's favorite, prediction time. Joe, I know that at the beginning of the season, we both had the Bills beating the Jets, but we also both had them coming back and beating Houston last week. And we were 3-point and we were a field goal away from that happening. Are you still going to lean that way with the Bills coming back to beating the Jets? And if so, what's your score?
Yeah, I think, this is going to be a close game. It's going to be a back and forth game, but I see the Bills taking this one. And I was wondering, I forgot if we had picked the Bills or the Jets in this one in our preseason picks here. I know we both took them to beat Houston, and that almost did happen, but I am going to say Bills 23, Jets 20 here. And I think the Bills win it late.
What about you, Sal?
I like it being a close game as well. I think it's more so that, this offense for the Bills is, I don't think suddenly just going to go out and score 30-something points, although they did last year against the Jets when Joe Brady took over that first week, right, which is kind of crazy. I don't think that's the case, but I still have a hard time seeing the Jets really putting up a lot of points on the Bills. I mean, the Bills just faced the Houston Texans who, put up 23. The Bills, even without some of their, top players, they were still able to kind of regroup in the second half and hold them down. They did a much better job against the Ravens in the second half. And now they're getting healthier. Taron Johnson, my guess, is going to be back for this game. Don't know. We'll see about Taylor Rapp. So I do think that the Bills are the better team. I think they'll get after Aaron Rodgers a little bit. I have a hard time seeing the Jets score more than 20 unless something really goes awry. So I'll give the Jets 20 points here. Actually, you know what? I'll say 17. How about 20-17? You said 23-20. I'll go 20-17.
All right, perfect.
I think it's going to be a relatively close game. Like I said, our defense is still going to probably have to carry the team for a little bit while the offense figures it out, which isn't a bad thing because when you got McDermott, it's got to play. They're going to play D under him, so that's not the concern. And Bobby Babich. So I think the Bills win this game. I'm going to say, let's go 24-21.
Okay.
Now, and Joe, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Sal? You've already asked him one. So
yeah, my other one now, this division so far, anyway, I know we're early in the season is, I don't want to say it's looking like the NFC least did a couple of years ago because I think the quality of these teams is better. But do you see either the Bills or Jets, pulling away. Because I was saying after this game, shoot, like 9 games could win this division if the games keep going this way. Bills got a tough schedule ahead of them. The Jets have already lost a few games. Do you see the Bills or Jets maybe going on a little streak here and pulling away and still winning, maybe 11 games or so and taking this division?
Well, obviously this game is, monstrous for this. If the Jets win, they take over first place in the division. Both teams are 3-3. Like, yuck, right?
Right.
This can be regarded as maybe the worst division in football right now. But I think it's mostly because the Patriots just aren't good at all. The Dolphins aren't very good, even when Tua comes back. What are they really? They're, they have injuries everywhere, and they haven't played very good football. And obviously they're dealing with that situation. And the Jets just have not been able to respond here at all. So I guess it comes down to them if they're going to be able to, because I'm confident the Bills will still win a lot of games. They'll still be there. If anything, the Bills can still pull away here towards as the season goes on. Going into the season, I thought, the Jets early part of the schedule was kind of more of their softer part. Although San Francisco was a tough one. They had Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota. But look at those teams now. Denver beat them, who looks great on defense. Minnesota, they beat them obviously in London. And now they go after the Bills. They get the Steelers. They do the Patriots, the Texans, the Cardinals, Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, Jags. Like, I think it gets tougher for them. Whereas I think the Bills schedule actually lightens up a little bit. After this game, the Titans, they go to Seattle, who just lost to the New York Giants. They get the Dolphins again. They go to the Colts. So I think there's some opportunity here for the Bills to kind of separate here. But this is a big game. If the Bills do that, I still think this is the Bills' division to lose. It really is. And to win and to lose. Even if they come out of this at 3-3, which you're really disappointed and think, oh my gosh, what's happening? I think there's a lot of opportunity ahead for them versus the Jets, because I think you're more confident in Josh Allen and what you've seen from them than what you might get from the Jets going forward. That said, if you do win this game and you're 4-2, honestly, guys, I think if you asked a lot of people before the season started, look at the first 6 games, I'll give you 4-2. They'd say, oh my gosh, I'll take that for the Buffalo Bills.
Right. All right. Excellent. And Jamie, how many games did you pick the Bills to win in the beginning of the season? I know I picked them to win 10, and I guess I'm going to stick with that.
I think we both said 10-7.
We both said 10-7. Okay.
But I had them winning the division at 10-7. Though right now, my pick doesn't actually look. Both of our picks don't actually look bad.
Right.
So,
okay.
So guess what? It is now that time in our show of the week for a question of the week segment. So Sal, you were on last year, but I don't think you were here for this. So let me tell you how this segment works. I ask you what the trivia question is. It's an NFL trivia question. And there's 4 possible answers, and you have to choose the correct answer.
Okay. I'll try.
Okay, Sal, for the first time ever having you on this podcast of season 2, here's your first trivia question.
All right, here we go.
Can you guess who this NFL quarterback is? He has the most rushing yards of all time. Is it Steve Young, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick?
I believe that would be Cam Newton.
Nope. Sorry. Joe, you want to give it a try?
Wow. As far as quarterback, I'm glad Sal got the question, because I probably would have said the same thing. You're talking about rushing quarterbacks here?
Yes.
Man.
All right. And could you just repeat the choices again?
Steve Young, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick.
I'm going to go with Michael Vick.
You got it. It was Michael Vick.
Good job.
He had 6,109 career rushing yards and 36 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I was thinking it couldn't be Lamar, and eliminated him right away. He just hasn't played long enough.
Right.
As great as he's been, he hasn't played long enough. And I just didn't think Steve Young was in the NFL long enough, because his USFL days, he had so many years there before he had a couple of years there. Then he comes to the NFL and he was sat behind Joe Montana. So I didn't think it was him. So to me, it came down to Newton and Vick. So you got it, Joe. Good job. But that was that would have been my guess. Is Newton number 2? Do you have that in front of you or no, Jamie?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, no problem. I'm going to look that up. You're forcing me to look that up now, because I'm going to guess he's number 2.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason I guessed Vic is because Young was still mainly a passing quarterback. I forgot that he spent his first few years, not in the NFL, but
the LA Express.
The LA Express. Now, I got to tell you, Jamie is the USFL guy here. He knows his stuff. He follows it.
Current USFL former USFL.
Oh,
The
no,
the current merged league, the UFL.
Yeah, UFL. That's right.
Okay,
you know, I'm a big baseball guy, so I'm watching other things in the springtime.
No,
but
I get it.
You know, Jamie is definitely up on the UFL there. So
Good.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So, do you still have time to continue with us, or how much?
I got like about maybe 5 more minutes, guys. So unfortunately, and that's unfortunate, but my son, he's 10. I have to. My wife's out of town this week, so I'm on dad duty, putting him to bed and all that.
Okay.
All right, we appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. So moving on to the Thursday night game, this one was wild between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Atlanta Falcons, which started at 8:15 p.m. on Amazon Prime Video. Both teams had no problems transporting the ball in the first half. Atlanta opened up the game with a Drake Awu Werewolves of London touchdown, while Mike Evans responded right back for the Bucs with one. The throwing continued between each quarterback as Baker Mayfield completed 12 of 15 passes for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yes, I got that right. And Kirk Cousins responded with 21 of 28 passes for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the final drive of the half, the Bucs stopped the Falcons' last attempt in the half and led the half 24-17. In the second half, points were hard to come by. The only touchdown to be found was thrown by Cousins, connecting with Darnell Mooney for Mooney's second touchdown of the game. In the fourth quarter, however, Mooney had a big error. Cousins on 3rd and 6 had a perfect throw to the wide receiver, but he dropped it on the 15-yard line. So Young Ho Koo came in for a 54-yard field goal try, and guess what? It was blocked. But luckily, Cousins came back and put together a 2-minute drive. He connected with London over the middle, and the Falcons then spiked the ball with 1 second left. A delay of game penalty was called, and Koo was given another chance to make a 52-yard field goal, this time to tie the game. And yes, this time he made it. The score was tied at 30. Atlanta won the coin toss to kick off overtime. With London leaving the game due to an injury after his last catch, they put in Kadero Hodge in to catch the winning touchdown in overtime, bringing the score to 36-30 Atlanta. So, Sal, how do you think that Atlanta has had an end of the comeback 3 times this season to pull off wins, and they even almost pulled one off on Sunday night against the Chiefs too?
Because I think they're talented. I think Atlanta's got a really talented team. They got a talented roster. You think about all that offensive talent. Actually, they were one of my teams that I thought would. I picked them to win the NFC South this year. I figured, hey, Kirk Cousins is there's no slouch at quarterback. He's not amongst the elite in the NFL, but he could throw a good football. And I figured, hey, when he has a supporting cast around him, think about this group. I mean, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. I mean, my goodness, right? They have a lot of talent right there. And look what Ray McLeod's doing, former Bill, over there right now. So I just think they have a lot of talent. They're a little inconsistent right now. Their defense can be hot and cold at times. So is their offense, obviously. So, yeah, I think that's why. They should have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs too, by the way, a couple of weeks ago, right? So, yeah, I think that's where they are. And hey, look, give the Buccaneers a lot of credit. I think that they've played well so far this year, better than I thought. Baker Mayfield's played pretty well, but that was a really fun game to start the week. Then we had a fun game to end the week with, I shouldn't say ended on Monday night. It wasn't as fun, but Sunday night, Pittsburgh and Dallas, that was a fun late game. Obviously, that was pretty cool. By the way, speaking of the Bucs, while we're on here, they're in New Orleans and they're going there early because of the hurricane that's going to hit that side. And I used to live right where this hurricane's going to hit. And I'm sure you guys probably share with me, just your thoughts. And I'm just heartbroken over everybody who's in the path of this thing. And it's very stressful and a lot of anxiety. And it's going to change a lot of things. It's just going to be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, prayers are with everybody there too. I got friends that are cleaning up after the last one,
Oh my gosh.
And now we got, we don't know what's coming there, but
yeah,
like you said, it's going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, now that the Falcons play the Panthers next week, do you think they could beat them? Because like I said, it's in Carolina. I know Carolina's rebuilding and everything, but they have looked better, at least since benching Bryce Young. Andy Dalton is doing okay, but they're finally getting a run game going, and it's in Carolina. And Atlanta, I think Atlanta should still come ready to play because I don't think they want to have a letdown going on the road too, where you think you have an inferior opponent beat, but they look better with Dalton in there instead of Young.
Yeah, you just said the key word there, letdown. Now, again, it's, in my old age, I'm going to bed earlier, and this early bedtime I'm missing all these classic endings here. I didn't get to see the end of this game, but man, I was not a believer in the Falcons. I did not pick them to win the South. But I tell you what, they got me believing now. I mean, with Cousins going over 500 yards in that, we measure player performance a lot on fantasy points, right? So he had like 40 fantasy points in that game between like 4 touchdowns, I think 500 plus yards. So, the Falcons are a fun team to watch, and they that division's wide open as well. So the Falcons can, hit their stride here and certainly can take that. I picked the Saints in the beginning of the year, who still have a chance as well. The Buccaneers are going to be there, depending on, how this affects them, this situation. But, definitely, I got it. Hats off to both teams in that case. I mean, that was an instant classic. And again, I only read about most of it, but still I've
had plenty of those.
Yeah, right. Again, this early bedtime, I
get it.
It's great for a lot of things, but there's some things that I'm missing these great games here, but seriously, it's great for the league. And it's good to see guys like Kirk Cousins have games like this. And, he's not a spring chicken anymore, and he's been criticized for primetime performances. And that was the ironic thing about this whole thing is he showed up, but the Falcons got to be careful. I think they'll beat the Panthers, but they got to be careful, not only, having a night or a day of less rest, I guess, or no, when did they played the Thursday game. So they actually have more rest, but still just be careful. Don't let down. I think they'll win this game, but they, wouldn't be surprised if they get off to a slow start, realize that, oh my goodness, we're in a game here, because Carolina's certainly not going to lay down and die. And I think it's going to be a tough win for the Falcons, but I think they'll get it.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I would like to thank Sal for coming on our show and let him know that he's welcome back anytime. You did a great job again, Sal.
No, thank you for having me, guys. Thanks for asking, and we'll do it again next year or whatever. Just reach out to me, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, we very much appreciate it.
You got it, man. You guys have a great night. Thanks again.
All right, you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yep, and then there were 2. So now let's draw our attention to the 425 New York Giants at the Seattle Seahawks. The Giants started out with the ball and thought that they were going to get a touchdown, but Eric 50 Shades of Gray fumbled it on the 1-yard line, and Rashawn Jenkins picked it up for a 102-yard touchdown to bring the score 7-0 Seahawks. The Giants got the ball back, and Daniel Jones completed a pass to Wan'Dale Robinson for a touchdown to tie the score at 7-0. With 22 seconds left in the first half, Giants kicker Greg Joseph kicked a field goal to give the G-Men the lead 10-7. The Seahawks' Jason Myers then tied the game with 2 seconds left in the half with a field goal to make it 10-10. After the Giants punt in the beginning of the third quarter, DK Metcalf catches a pass from Geno Smith but fumbles it, and Tyler Newman recovers it for the Giants. Daniel Jones then hooks up with Darius Slayton to make the score 17-10 Giants. With 6:33 left in the third, the Seahawks had to settle for another field goal to bring the score to 17-13 Giants. Joseph then kicked another field goal in the third quarter to bring the score to 20-13 Giants. With less than 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Joseph kicked his third field goal to bring the Giants' score to 23-13. Seattle then started to use their 2-minute no-huddle offense, and it resulted in a 5-yard touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba to cut the lead 23-20. With 55 seconds left, Seahawks kicker Jason Myers attempted a 60-yard field goal, but it was blocked by the Giants and returned for a touchdown by Bryce I'm not a Chevy, I'm a Ford Wheaton, to give the G-men the win 30-20 or 29-20 actually. And Joe, what did you think about the Giants? That Daniel Jones, and did you think that Daniel Jones and the Giants were gonna pull this one off? Because we did talk about how they were going to be more competitive with Dable. Dable had those boys ready to go, and like I said, with that offensive line that they had, they went back and played old time Giants football, where you run the football and play time of possession, and it worked.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I have a Daniel Jones comment. I would like to comment. Daniel Jones, I was going to talk about that. We do have somebody here that commented on our show, though, and I hope you're still watching. This was about 15 minutes ago, but it says, and I'll get back to the Giants in a second, NFL is full of it. Josh, as in Josh Allen, definitely concussed. Didn't want to see him miss the Jets game. Now, I'll comment and I'll pass this to you, and then I'll talk about the Giants here. Now, I'm not going to completely dismiss that if you want the truth. He took a hard hit in that game and looked concussed to me, and I'm very surprised that they let him play. Now, I don't know. It's not because I don't know. What did you think about that before I move on to this other game?
I heard they actually use smelling salts to wake him up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted to acknowledge and appreciate your comment there. I didn't want to let it go because I know, like I said, we were letting Sal Capaccio speak and everything. So just wanted to put that there. Thanks for the comment. And although I don't know what
the comment,
it does, and that's why I was a little confused too, because we just had Sal on. But good comment, and it's a good question because he looked a little concussed to me. I was a little surprised that they let him come back. I even told the people I was watching the game with, he's not coming back this game. So anyway, thank you for that. But Daniel Jones played like we all expect Daniel Jones to play. Like when the Giants drafted him, I think they knew he wasn't going to be Joe Montana here, but he's certainly better than what he's shown. But I think what you saw from Daniel Jones on Sunday was what Giants fans and Giants coaches and everybody expected from him. Solid performance, played like a winner, threw for 257 yards, ran for 38, a couple of touchdowns in there. So I was very proud of Daniel Jones for that performance. And if he can do that consistently, again, the Giants aren't going to be, this offensive juggernaut, but I think definitely they'll be competitive. And again, I don't think they're a playoff team, but again, beating a team that is potentially a playoff team like Seattle, I think that's a big win for the Giants. And I think it proved, what they can do here, and Malik Neighbors, their star receiver, missed the game. Who needs Malik Neighbors? And I'm being sarcastic, of course, but Darius Slayton caught 8 passes for 122 yards and scored. Who needs Saquon Barkley? Being sarcastic again. I would love to still have Saquon Barkley on the team. Tyron Tracy carries the ball 18 times for 129 yards. Very Barkley-like there. Mm-hmm. So excellent offense performances. Again, Darius Slayton doesn't always play like this. Tyron Tracy, just getting established here. So, we'll see. Like I said, the Giants were my team growing up. They're my second team now. I'd love to see them win, especially having Brian Daboll there. So I was very happy with this performance. I wasn't so sure they would win. I thought they would keep the game close. I thought they'd cover the point spread here, but they won the game outright and deservedly so. So again, if they can get performances like this from these receivers besides Neighbors, and get Daniel Jones to play like this on a regular basis, I think the Giants are going to take some steps forward.
It looks like your student, Rory, just commented.
He did. Welcome back, Rory. Thanks for joining us. And he says, I'm back, and we appreciate you being back here. Extra points for you tomorrow.
We appreciate it. Anyway, yeah. Well, guess what, though? They finally have this thing called an offensive line this year. That's what's helping them, because guess what? They couldn't pay Saquon Barkley because what would have happened?
Yeah.
They would have kept him, but they still would have had no offensive line. So, and like I said, Joe, what do you do when you don't, I'm going to keep saying this, but what do you do when you don't pay the running backs? a lot. You get a serviceable one and you use that money to rebuild your offensive line, and it'll make running backs like Eric Gray and Tyon Tracy look like a Saquon Barkley because they actually have a line to run through.
That's it, and they're probably paying these guys pennies compared to what they would have to pay, Barkley. So, like you said,
they couldn't afford to rebuild their line with that if they did.
That's right.
That's why.
So again, I'd love to have them, but again, you got to look out for the best of the team, and again, like you said, serviceable running back. And if a guy's going to run for 129 yards, that sounds serviceable to me.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, their offensive line's actually been one of their bright spots, even though they're 2-3, which is good to see, though.
Which is good, and you don't have Daniel Jones running for his life on every play.
Yeah. And so, Joe, what did you think about the Giants pulling out that blocked field goal for a touchdown? I bet you a lot of people were thinking, oh boy, here we go again. They were going to give it up, but I think the Giants finally caught a break, and Dable was saying, praying to the football gods, just give us one break today, and they did.
And they got it. Yeah, the Giants haven't been getting too many breaks, but it's nice when something goes your way. And again, great to see. And they, when teams play well, they make their own breaks. And I think that was the case here. The Giants deserve to win this game. And I think, things went their way as a result based on the way they played.
And now on to the Sunday night game, as Sal said, the thrilling game and a very rainy game with the Cowboys taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The game was delayed for over an hour due to rain and plenty of lightning. But I wonder if both teams were kung fu fighting, though.
Right.
Both teams started out their first drives with field goals to make it 3-3. At the end of the first quarter, Dak Prescott got sacked on the 20-yard line by T.J. Watt and Nick Herbig. T.J. turned down for Watt. At 8:51 in the second quarter, Brandon Aubrey makes his second field goal for 33 yards to bring the score to 6-3 Cowboys. With 51 seconds left in the half from the 15-yard line, Dak Prescott threw an interception. And my producer here, who's a Cowboys fan, likes to always say, Dak is always good from one interception every game. But anyway, and Dante Jackson recovered it. At 14:46 in the third quarter, Justin Fields again. This is another guy who took one of those old school not a clothesline hit, but it looked like it. It was like That hit reminded me of the scene of the movie, the Adam Sandler's 2005 Longest Yard, when Switkowski just freaking clotheslined the running back there. That's what it looked like there in 2024, and that's not supposed to be happening, even with all the protocols and everything.
Right,
so,
you see that in like the 70s highlight films, right? Running backs getting clocked and clothesline like that.
Or as Chairman Judge would say, that would have been on the "Here Comes the Boom" highlight that he always talks about.
Right.
So, anyway, we're making light of a bad situation here, but anyway, so we hope he's okay. And he went to the medical tent, but it was odd because Kyle Allen took over for 2 plays, and then all of a sudden Fields came back into the game, rushing in like everything was fine there. So both him and Josh Allen, like I said, they both got magic potions there and smelling salts there. So when Fields returned, he found Connor Haywood for the touchdown to bring Pittsburgh to their first lead, 10-6. At 13:51 in the fourth quarter, Prescott found Rico Dowdle for a 22-yard touchdown to take the lead, 13-10. Again, at 8:28, Prescott threw another interception intended for Jalen Tolbert, but Joey Porter Jr., picked it up. Not to be confused with his old man and also a great Steeler, linebacker Joey Porter Sr. Mm-hmm. With 4:56 left in the fourth quarter, Fields gave a shuffle pass to Pat Freiermuth, and he brought the score to 17-13 Pittsburgh. With 26 seconds left in the game and 4th and goal, this time Prescott finds Tolbert open, and they win the game 20-17. So, Joe, do you think that Prescott was going to come through and finally help win the game for the Cowboys. And I think he did finally live up to that big contract there, and he got paid the big bucks to do that. So,
I mean, not only this game, but Prescott continues. He's been excellent in every game, even the games that the Cowboys lost. I mean, he was throwing for like over 300 yards. He threw for like over 350 in this one. He did have 2 interceptions and a lost fumble. So certainly, that's going to have to be worked on. But he did, lead that winning drive at the end, scoring with 20 seconds left. And it's just this Cowboys team I just can't figure out. It's such a different team than last year. Last year, I mean, how many times did I say this? They were unbeatable at home, minus the playoff game that they choked in. But they were, I think, 8-0 in the regular season at home last year, outscoring opponents like 40-15. Crazy. They get killed in the playoff game. They've played 2 home games this year, and they're 0-2. Yet they're 3-0 on the road. Figure that one out. Last year, they were mediocre on the road. Mm-hmm. So I still can't figure this team out. But Dak Prescott is living up to the contract, and he has been all season long. Just again, you don't want 2 interceptions like that could have lost the game for them. But again, the way he brought them back and led the game-winning drive, I think that says a lot, even more than the 350-plus yards that he threw. So great win for the Cowboys. I didn't see that coming. I really thought Pittsburgh would win this game. Again, because of the weather, I did not see any of it, just because by the time it started, it was almost, almost 10 o'clock, right? So I was like, nah, I'm not even going to start watching this game because there's no way I'm going to see the end of it. So, disappointing loss for the Steelers, because I really thought they had an opportunity to put themselves forward a little bit. But good win for the Cowboys, especially coming back at the end like that.
Yeah, and especially because they're dealing with a lot of injuries, and the defense played well minus all those injuries. But how about that young offensive line finally open up holes? They got the running game going finally. It's like we said, Joe, this is a rebuilt offensive line and a young offensive line, but I think it's only going to improve with each game. And you saw maybe they finally get the running game going all year now. We'll see.
Yeah, you said that last week, how they were struggling and how gradually they're going to grow and get better. And I think this week was proof of that. So good call on that.
Yep. And lastly, Monday night matchup with the New Orleans Saints taking on the Kansas City Swifts. I mean, the Chiefs. In the first quarter, Kansas City got on the board with a touchdown from Kareem Hunt on a 5-yard run to make the score 7-0 Chiefs. In the beginning of the second quarter, Harrison Butker hit a 26-yard field goal to bring the score to 10-0 Chiefs. And then Rashid Shaheed don't like it, rocked the Casbah, then caught a 43-yard pass from Derek, you can drive my car, to score a touchdown to cut the score to 10-7 Chiefs. Still in the second half, Butker connected on 2 more field goals to bring the Chiefs score to 16-7 Kansas City, as the radio announcer, the voice radio announcer, the Chiefs always says at the half. After a scoreless third quarter, we move on to the fourth quarter where Foster Moreau halted in a 6-yard pass from Carr, but the extra point was missed, bringing the score to 16-13 Kansas City. Who does this kicker think he is? Greg Zuerlein?
Yeah.
Hold on. Hold on, Joe, just a second. Here we go. Okay. The Chiefs then responded back as Xavier, oh, brother, we are not worthy, took the handoff on a jet sweep from Mahomes to bring the score 23-13. And then rubbing salt in the wound, Buckner kicked 1 more field goal for 38 yards to seal the game, 26-13. So, Joe, what did you think about the Chiefs finally looking like they played a complete game and being 1 out of 2 teams having a 5-0 record?
Yeah, they look good. Now I love your Chris Berman references there, and you're priceless. I was surprised by this game. I thought this was going to be a letdown game for the Chiefs. I thought the Saints were going to prove that they're a team to be reckoned with. I picked them to win the NFC South, as I said before, and I thought they were going to show up in this game. I thought even if they lost, it would be a close game. and I thought they could win it outright. And I think the Chiefs showed who was boss here. You know, you were talking about a guy who's been invisible for most of this season, Travis Swift, you know, who hasn't done that much. And he, from the start of this game, you know, especially in the first half, I mean, he was getting every other pass, it seemed like. And there was a stat in the game that they didn't throw a pass to a wide receiver till in the middle of the second quarter, I think it was. They were throwing them to the running backs. They had 4 tight ends in the game at one point. You know, I had some props on Worthy that lost. And I was like, when are they going to throw this guy the ball? I mean, eventually they did, and he scored a touchdown, but that didn't help me. I needed yardage for him. But, you know, the Chiefs were doing a very good job of spreading the ball around. And again, not to their wide receivers, to, you know, Travis Swift and to, you know, some of those other guys there. So he had his best game of the season. Mahomes just played like Mahomes, didn't do anything flashy, didn't do anything spectacular, but just got the job done and won in convincing fashion. A game where I thought the Chiefs would be a little bit of a letdown. I thought the Saints could potentially win this game, and it really wasn't even that close. I thought, you know, the Chiefs pretty much had this one in control right from the start.
Mm-hmm. And also, what did you think of Derek Carr getting hurt? Now he's out long-term with an oblique injury. This is, it's Jake Hefner's team now, so we got to see what happens. But I don't think he doesn't look too bad for a backup. The one thing he can do that Carr can, at least he can run and throw off the run. So that's what's interesting about it.
Yeah, the Saints are battling a few injuries because Taysom Hill is out, right? He's out for a few weeks. He's got broken ribs. So he took some quarterback snaps in the past, and, you know, you would have a guy like him available to help. So I wasn't aware that Carr was going to be out long term. So that's a big blow for them. And maybe that division championship I thought the Saints had coming, you know, is going to be a little more difficult than we thought. So we'll see. Again, the Saints have some injury issues now, and again, some teams stepping up there with the Falcons. Again, the Buccaneers were there, but you got to wonder, how is this, you know, major, you know, biggest hurricane possibly ever in Florida going to affect the team in Tampa that could take a direct hit with this hurricane? And we, you know, remember what happened with the Saints in New Orleans with Katrina. I mean, they were displaced for a long time. So I hope that doesn't happen to the Bucs, but it could. You know, we don't know what's going to happen here. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
So what happened to the stadium then? Does it look like the stadium got blown over, or what do we know?
The one in Tampa, I mean, the storm's not hitting for another day and a half. So, you know, basically another 24 hours. So we're really not going to know for a couple of days. You know, it depends on where the storm goes. You know, now they're saying maybe it doesn't hit right over Tampa. I mean, they're still going to get affected big time by it. But there was concern that it was going to go right over Tampa Bay and, you know, flood miles inland and stuff, which still could happen. Now, maybe the effects in the city of Tampa itself may not be as bad. But, you know, again, it's still, the whole area is going to be affected in a major way. And it's going to be interesting to see how bad it is and how it affects the Buccaneers.
We're gonna have to see where they're gonna have to play if they can't play there. But we're also thinking about the families too. Don't forget.
Yeah, that, of course, the families and life itself. These are human beings besides football players, right? So they're affected. They're human beings being affected by a monster storm. So of course that's first priority, and then football comes next. But we shall see. You know, they may, well, I don't know if they could, I mean, you know, play in some place like Miami. Who knows? You know, maybe they can have them play in Miami or Orlando. Well, you know, Orlando is going to get some of the effects of this storm too, but perhaps, you know, if the field in Tampa is unplayable or structurally damaged, maybe you play some games at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando or something like that.
Camping World Stadium, yeah, and they're renovating Camping World Stadium too, which is
right. So, there's, I'm sure, it's not like the Saints. I mean, the Saints had to go to San Antonio, which is a little further away. And I think they played a whole season in San Antonio. So if the Raymond James or whatever it's called now is structurally damaged to where they can't play football games at all the rest of the season, I don't think the Bucs will have to go very far. I think, again, Orlando, or if they had to play a couple of games in Miami, I'm sure they could. So I'm sure they won't have to go as far.
But yeah, like you said, the Saints are going to be hungry to want to beat Tampa coming off of that, especially it's going to be the first start with the backup quarterback. But I mean, obviously it might hinder the Saints' chances of making the playoffs or doing anything. But what do you think? Could this be like an opportunity for Hefner to like begin his career and like use this as an audition to put film out there on tape for other teams or anything for him to look at, or potentially go to the UFL next year too? I mean,
right.
This could be the start of his career to get his body of work in the NFL and pro football.
That's a very good point. Of course, this could be an opportunity. Have we ever seen that before, where a starting quarterback goes down and you think the team is done, and then another guy takes him to the promised land? Hint, hint, St. Louis Rams, some guy named Warner, right? Trent Green or whatever goes down with the torn ACL, and that's it. The Rams are done. And some guy named Warner takes them all the way to the Super Bowl. The Patriots are in the playoffs, and guy named Bledsoe gets hurt, and they bring this relatively unknown guy named Brady in.
They were 0-2 to start out the year in week 3 of the regular season.
Right. And did they end up doing anything? Or did that guy Brady ever make it in the NFL?
Yeah.
I think we all know the answer to that question, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this guy's going to be Brady or Kurt Warner, but again, we've seen it before where the main guy goes down and you think a team is done, and the other guy shows that maybe it should have been him all along. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm certainly saying it could happen, right? It's a great question, great point that you bring up. And, time will tell. We'll see how the Saints do.
Odd. Well, it looks like we come to the end of our show, and we would like to thank our special guest, Sal Capaccio, for coming on our show with all his Buffalo Bills knowledge. So, Joe, where can we find you on social media on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024?
Tuesday, October 8th. Man, this time is going fast. You can find me on Twitter X, talking about football, talking about other sports. OMG, let's go Mets. Up 2-1 on the Phillies, winning 7-2 tonight. So talking a lot about the Mets, talking a lot about the dramatic playoff games they've been playing lately. October is the best time of year for sports, right? I mean, we got baseball playoffs. Rory, thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. As always, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
October is sports heaven. I know we're ending here, but we're in the middle of football season, both pro and college. Hockey and basketball are going to be starting. Baseball's in the heart of its amazing postseason, so a lot to talk about. So my thoughts, Twitter X, sports heaven in October.
And speaking of baseball, in its heaven, at the end, the A's are moving to Sacramento next year, and they're they're imploding the Tropicana tomorrow to begin building that beautiful ballpark in Las Vegas.
Wow, that's incredible.
Anyway, you can find me, yours truly, at Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and ring that bell for notifications. For more content like this show and open mic night on Driving to the Top Productions, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, X page account, Facebook stream, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jamie Malloy, and we'll see you thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, Coach McDermott, keep your eye on the clock. Aaron Rodgers, don't go getting any more coaches fired. And Dak Prescott can come through even with being the highest paid quarterback. But always remember one thing. To quote our friend Chris Berman, even though they've lost 2 in a row, they're playing the Jets. A fired up Jets team that fired their coach. One thing remains clear. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. See you next time, folks.
All right. Good night, everybody.